Welcome back to the High Performance Consciousness Podcast. My name is Matthew Paddy, and today I would love to talk to you about imagination and how imagination creates your reality. So as we dive into this conversation today, if you're driving, make sure that you're paying attention. If you're sitting having a coffee or your favorite drink, or even listening with a friend, then you might want to grab a piece of paper and note down some ideas that come up during this conversation with you personally. So let's dive in. Imagination creates reality. Now, imagination is often confused with airy-fairy, pie in the sky, living in the clouds type of behavior. However, when you think about anything that exists in the world right now, anything at all of material substance, it was first created from an idea. It was first created from an imagination, an imaginative state by the person that created and received the idea. So imagination in the work that I do with my clients is really, really important because we find, and I've seen this many, many times personally for myself, but also with clients over the last 25 years, that when we feel stressed, when we feel overwhelmed, when we feel like we are stuck in the bandwidths of survival, where our income may be, reaching a ceiling, and we're bouncing between ceiling and floor all the time with our experiences, with the results of our life, then our imagination tends to be truncated, it tends to contract, and we tend to link our imagination to facts, meaning we tend to look through the eyes of imagination at our past and believe that that is all that is possible for us. That is so far from the truth, it is not funny. You are a super imaginative being. You have untold capabilities, unlimited potential, and you may have heard this many, many times, and even explored it and investigated it yourself and applied principles that you may have learned along the way of your personal development or your entrepreneurial journey, listening and working with other people. However, the number one reason why people succeed at life and succeed in their business is because they use the faculty of their imagination. Now, Napoleon Hill speaks about this a lot. You can go to W. Clement Stone. You can go to all the New Thought authors of the late 19th century and the early 20th century as well. Imagination creates your reality. And another word for imagination might be the quantum field, the universe, God, source, intelligence, infinite awareness, whatever it may be. Your imagination is key. So if you can bring yourself to imagine a better world for yourself, a better reality for yourself, then as you are imagining it, you can then become enrolled neurologically, physiologically, biologically, emotionally, mentally, and habitually enrolled into taking action off the back of that imagination. Because imagination is part of you. You receive imagination, as I call it, a lightning strike from outside of you. I call it the higher self, you can call it the quantum field, but we receive ideas from somewhere. It's part of the collective field. And so you being a transmitter and receiver of information, of light and information, you are constantly receiving information, constantly receiving new data and new things to process. Now, most people still operate at a conscious state where they are living and breathing through the analytical mind, which loves to be creative, but really operates from going from point A to point B. So rarely do we allow ourselves to be imaginative and to focus on the B, which is our result, our end, the experience you wish to have ahead of time, because we've been taught by our peers, by society, by even our parents, our schooling institutions, that to be super creative and not apply it in the workforce or in the 9-to-5 grind, then you are in fact disconnected from reality, which is disconnected from the third dimension. So we're going to go into that in a lot more detail in upcoming episodes. I've got so much to share with you guys. But for this first episode, I'd really love to drum home the importance of expanding your imagination. Personally, I take at least half an hour, if not an hour out every single day in the middle of the day. You can call it siesta time, whatever you want to call it, just to imagine. Now, I don't place my focus on anything in particular, but you can. And so I just lie reclined, not fully horizontal, but lie reclined, and I just relax my body and I allow my mind to expand its fringes, to expand its edges. And when I find an edge where I feel that there's pushback, I think, ooh, I feel limited there. I feel it's not possible. I have no proof of that. That's not something I believe I can do, or that's not something that I have experience in, or that I may feel that I've got support or love or nurture around. Then I make a note of that. And that becomes my edge, my imaginative edge. So if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, then you might remember that one of the first, I think it's in whether The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, when the hobbits got to the furthest part of the village, and one more step, this was the furthest they've ever been from their village. And that's what imagination is like. We don't know what we don't know. We can imagine something, but within the physiology connected to performance, there is this disbelief or this unconscious block that says, unless I have fact or proof that this exists, then I will deny it, or I will not pursue it, or I will not entertain it. So your imagination is super, super critical. And if you think back to why you started your business, if you're in business, maybe you're working in a company for someone else right now. Why did you want to do the work that you're doing? What led you down this path? It was all because you received an idea. You received a lightning strike that actually compelled you to move forward and to explore and discover new information on that particular topic. So if you are an entrepreneur and you are in business, regardless of whether you have your own practice, you have a bricks and mortar business, or whether you're more online, which tends to be the case these days, then imagination creates reality, because what you place your attention on is what you give your energy towards. And what you give your energy towards consistently, repeatedly over time will yield results, will actually bear fruit. So I've seen this happen so much with my clients. And also with myself. Everything I give to my clients is what I have always worked on myself and what I am on the process and the path to mastery for myself as well. So nothing is ever untested. It's all tested, which is what I'll be sharing with you guys as we go on this incredible high-performance consciousness journey together. So far, let's just make this really, really simple. If you can imagine it in the law of quantum physics, or in quantum physics, it exists. If you can imagine it, it exists as a potential in the field. And you'll hear me say this over and over again. So if you can see it, and you can sense it with your 5 senses, and it feels real when you experience it through your 5 senses, then it must exist as a tangible reality. It must exist. Because everything operates in its kind, meaning that one side of the equation does not exist on its own, in isolation. So for one opportunity to exist, so too must its counterpoint. So as an example, if you have an idea, it must exist in the field. It doesn't exist simultaneously, independently, of its own, just as a waveform. It exists in the field as a potential that you can collapse from wave into particle and realize as material fact. Okay, so that's the first thing. If you can imagine it, then it exists. Now, for it, whatever the idea is, to manifest into form, to yield results as fact, you must apply energy towards it. You must give attention towards it, which was why when you think, act, and feel on your imagination, and you continue to do so repeatedly over time, then you will bear the fruits of your labor. Okay? That is the promise of the law. So imagination really comes back to this I am statement, this I am principle, that I am magical. I am an imaginative being, which means I am a creative being. So it doesn't matter whether you're steeped in science or steeped in metaphysics or esoterics. You can blend both worlds together, which is my passion, the science and the metaphysical world, being able to draw from, the quantum field and to ground it and apply it in the world of matter to experience the experiences that I want. And let's face it, imagination is a compass. So if you find that you are more stressed, overwhelmed, maybe frustrated, you feel contained, like I said at the beginning of this episode, you will find that your imagination becomes limited. It becomes tied or tethered to that frequency, the stress that you're feeling. So I can't see my way out of this. I can only see one or two possibilities. There are infinite possibilities, infinite potentials. So your number one gift, your number one superpower in your entrepreneurial toolbox is your imagination, because that is where solutions to problems are found. That is where problems are identified, and then opportunities are created around providing solutions for that in the marketplace for people. Okay, so it doesn't just work in one area of your life, it works in every area of your life. Your imagination is upgraded every time you add to the imagination with new qualities or a new lens. So what do I mean by that? So let's say that you're focusing on the results of your business and you really want to start to grow your client base. And you may be feeling, well, it hasn't worked in the past. I've got email funnels and online presence and all these sorts of things, but I haven't seen the translation of effort into results. So if you continue to add the same amount of imaginative energy to that problem solving, you are going to only move the needle half a point, maybe 1 point at a time, and it's going to feel very slow and potentially arduous and frustrating. There's a great likelihood that you will want to give up, throw in the towel, or even be like Odie the dog and change your focus onto something else and start licking all opportunities, believing that they're going to yield the result that you want or lead to the fulfillment that you're actually seeking. However, if you can add value to your imagination and you can use this as a process, then by asking the simple question of what else is available that I am not yet seeing? What else is available that I'm not yet seeing? So as an example, if you are wanting to grow your business, then by asking that question, you are openly referring and espousing to the cosmos, to the universe, to the field that is highly responsive to your thoughts and your feelings, that you're open to receiving new information. And so in that moment, you just write down as many things that come to mind, trusting your intuition, trusting the fact that it has come to you in that moment and not judging it. So you write it down just as an exercise. And so with that, you can start to see, well, I'm already starting to stretch the limits of my own perceived limits of my imagination. So you may have written down some people that you could contact, that you were fearful of the past, thinking that they're not the right client, or you're going to get rejected from them, or they're not in your niche, whatever it may be. It might be an idea that you haven't yet explored to add extra value to your clients. It might be something very simple, which is just taking action off the one idea and maintaining a single focal point rather than dancing around and bouncing from one idea to the next. So what else is available to me? What other potential exists that I have not yet seen is a really, really good question to ask. So your imagination creates reality because everything outside of you was first born inside of you. Everything you see outside of you in the third dimensional world, the world of objects and things, the materialistic view outside, was first birthed inside of you. So if you can cultivate a strong imagination and you can tie it to a purpose, a why, then you will strengthen the imagination. So if you just having imaginative thoughts and saying, oh, wouldn't that be lovely? I'd just constantly like to be on the beach, away from everyone and sipping pina coladas, reading my favorite book and whatever it may be. So you can start to look and say, well, is that what I really want, or is that a form of escape? Conversely, if you ask the question, if I was to spend a year on a beach with all expenses covered, all the resources, people, and opportunities already set in place in support and nurture of me, what would I do for a year? Where would my passion lie? What subjects would I read? What would really light me up? That's a clue as to the amplitude of your imagination. So if you sit there and you're starting to think, well, these subjects really interest me, like quantum physics, neuroscience, consciousness, success, spirituality, energy, medicine, all those sorts of things, then that occupies your genius zone. So that's where your imagination will come alight even more. So what I'd love you to do today is install a practice of imagination, whether it's in the middle of the day, whether it's the first thing in the morning or at night, but principally in the middle of the day. Take a moment, whether it's 5 minutes, just to imagine. Allow your mind to wander. Allow your mind to expand as to what is possible in the field of infinite potentials. And so as you continue to expand your imagination, just observe what comes up in you. I don't believe that's possible, or that would be cool, or I'm not sure how to do that, or this would be amazing. My life would be on fire if this was to come true. So just pay attention to that using awareness. So by practicing, having a daily practice of imagination, doesn't have to be half an hour or an hour, but I'd encourage you to rest your body and to take yourself into the field as often as you can through the week. Then by doing so, you are honing your self-reflection, you are honing your awareness. At the same time, you are honing and strengthening your imagination. So with that said, what I'd love you to do is, if you've put this into practice and you receive, some lightning strikes, some new ideas, then come back and comment. Let me know how your imagination is growing. Because if imagination creates reality, then anything you see outside of you can change and be changed as a result of upgrading your imagination. So if you are in business, in a health situation, in a relationship, in a financial predicament, whatever it is that may feel contracted or may feel unpreferred, you can imagine your way out of it by giving yourself permission to expand your field of potential. Because the infinite field of potential exists whether you believe it or not, or whether you invest in it or not. So my encouragement is to invest in it, to start believing in it a little bit by little, because you don't get what you want in the world. You receive what you believe. Let me say that again. You don't get what you want. You don't get the results you want in the world because you want them. You get the results because you believe in the results, and you experience the results ahead of time because you've already imagined it. You've already brought it into your imaginative faculty. So as you expand your imagination, your creativity expands, your problem-solving capabilities expand, or your solution-seeking capabilities expand. So I encourage you to deep dive into this. It's the first and best starting point for all business owners and entrepreneurs. Develop a strong imagination. And in developing a strong imagination, you can create the negative just as easily as you can create the positive. So where are you going to direct your focus? What is it that you're going to direct your focus towards? So I'll leave you with that today. And again, come back to me. Let me know if you've got some great insights or any comments on this particular episode. But between now and tomorrow, you can imagine and dream a much better dream. And you can do so by making the decision to do so. I'll leave you with that. Have a phenomenal day, and I'll see you on the next episode.